Did anyone tell you it was a bad idea?
Or everyone. And some estimates say $400 billion needs to go into copper. The most the industry's ever put in has been 70. The difference between the world getting 1 billion pounds of copper from that site and not is the science.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. Grant, John, we are in Geologic's warehouse here in Calgary. Grant, I want to start with you. 13 years running GeologicAI, but really only in the last 3 years have you guys raised venture capital and found product market fit and started to blow up. How does it feel? What's it like?
It's nice to be on the side of, in control of your own destiny, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to raise money anymore. We can run this business and grow this business. It's a really nice place to be because being in that nerve-wracking edge for so many years, when you're struggling for capital, your idea is just an idea. It's not proven. It's really a long time thing.
Yeah.
And so it feels pretty good to transition from, call it startup to scale up.
Right. And you guys don't have to raise money anymore because now you guys are revenue positive.
Yeah,
you're
cash flow break even on a good basis here and growing with a really good growth rate.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. But you guys did raise about like 100 million, right? And
100 million Canadian in total.
yeah, from some pretty incredible investors like the Bill Gates Fund and
yeah, Breakthrough Energy of late, the two top mining companies in the world, BHP and Rio Tinto, as well as Creative Destruction Labs was a really amazing thing for us. We went through in 2019, and that gave us a whole new network of mentors that are Calgary-based and Vancouver-based and Toronto-based who have just been amazing.
Yeah, you've spoken about them very highly, especially in our prep call as well. You love those guys at CDL.
Yeah, and we're the first company that went through CDL that's now a sponsor. So we sponsor the mining stream of CDL.
Oh,
and
nice.
we think it's a force for good in the world. It's done a lot of work. And as a Calgary story, my last stat was almost half the money CDL has raised globally has come out of Calgary.
Wow.
So it's an amazing thing here in Calgary.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Maybe let's walking back to the beginning, Grant. What version of this that we're seeing behind us, of these robots and this machine, and we just did a tour that we'll also be releasing the video of. What version of this did not work in those early days? And what did you kind of learn to kind of get there?
Well, we actually started in oil sands work and oil sands research. And we could see immediately the value of high resolution information. The oil sands companies, they're big. They don't necessarily see that connection as early. And so we took that and ran with it. So we were the first company to invent multi-sensor imaging all at the same time.
Okay.
And so the idea is, can we collect a data set that is amazing? But we went through a stage of deployment, and I'll call it technical deficit, right? You're collecting petabytes of information. And if your light field is off or some quality control aspect is weak, now you're downstream.
Right.
And so you've got all this technical deficit that you have to automate and recover. And so that was a real struggle for us for a very long time. Okay. And so we're finally past that hurdle of our systems are robust enough to capture that major quality hurdle. And then, of course, now you can just do amazing science off that.
That's what you were talking about when you talked about your quality control being one of your moats.
It's absolutely
it's
like
just like
field experience.
Yeah.
Going to Bolivia and going from -3 degrees in the morning, an hour later to 30, and seeing how instruments respond, that sort of thing matters.
Yeah.
Dust control and calibration and standards, all of that is so important to this field. Like the idea was, let's collect these data sets. And then the idea was, we've got to perfect these data sets.
Right.
And that was a long slog and a lot of work.
Yeah. And so you guys pivoted from, as you said, the oil and gas space to mining. And that's really when you were able to find product market fit and blow up.
Yeah, our first 8 years was basically consulting research projects for oil companies.
Okay.
Out of Calgary, right? Like we have this amazing scientific community here who's spending dollars on research. We were helping oil sands mines. We were helping SAGD operations with rock analytics.
Okay.
And then our eyes were really opened when we went to the PDAC conference for mining in 2019. And we realized just how big the rock flows were in mining. And so that was kind of alerted us to the fact that we can take this technology developed here and deploy it at a cost base where the business model works really well for miners.
Did anyone tell you it was a bad idea?
Or everyone.
Everyone.
Oh,
the pivot.
This was, in fact, one of our mentors was like, don't go into mining. That's a terrible idea.
Okay.
And so you just have to, have stubborn tenacity and sometimes take a shot, right?
Yeah.
In startup world, I call it having an iron in the fire. You're kind of just seeing what works. And when you get the market signals that something's working, and we did early in mining, it was obvious that that was a venturable idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So had a couple calls and someone was like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah, we had a flagship Canadian company who knew that this work would be valuable and was early, signed us to a major commitment very early.
That's amazing.
And that was a block that allowed us to step forward.
Yeah. Okay. What's changed internally? Like, how does it feel maybe having now gone to the other side of now you're part of this hockey stick shaped curve?
A startup to scale up is non-trivial, right?
Right.
And it's all about people. This idea of solve people, not problems, is really important. And transitioning from, call it startup CEO to scale up position is definitely always top of mind.
Yeah.
Like once you have product market fit, it's a different operation. Your ability to innovate quickly diminishes, right? Yeah. Your ability to plan improves with cash flows and all that. You can make long-term commitments with care and live up to them. And that's not necessarily a startup mentality.
Yeah.
And so transitioning there has been a real interesting experience.
Okay. John, you're part of the addition since the product market fit and the massive growth, and joined as the CTO here at GeologicAI. What's it been like since joining? You've been here for about a year now, right?
About a year and a half. Yep.
Year and a half. Okay.
It has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
There's not a day that goes by where you don't learn something new or have a different area to explore. I think that the pressure on the business and the scaling challenge is putting a ton of pressure on absolutely everyone in the company. And I think one of the things that has been interesting and you have to be careful about is when you join a company that's a decade in, at that point, 12 years in, you can't come in and say, you got everything wrong, we're going to go fix all of it.
Yeah.
You have to look at it and say, how does this business need to scale? Where are the right points to put some leverage in that? And I think that's been really, really interesting to join at that time. It's an inflection point. And, some of the symptoms that you see from companies that are in that early stage where you're sort of ideating, you're trying to figure out what's going to work. There's a lot of rapid iteration. Well, now you've got these commitments that you have to deliver on. You have commitments to your market, to your customers, to the people that are making decisions with the tools and technology and service that you're providing, and you can't change it as quickly.
Right.
So there's this back pressure now on try not to go too slowly, but don't lose the spirit of what you're doing in terms of being able to deliver and iterate and improve. That's a fascinating space to be in. I think it's this exciting and sort of captivating time when a company has to deal with those challenges because they're so different than what you're going to deal with when you're a small company where everyone's really in one room, communications like completely organic. Most people know what's going on because they literally talk at the coffee machine or they run into each other. Now we're this global company that's operating throughout the world. We've got multiple offices. We have a distributed team, and you're trying to make sure that you can set direction and communicate and work on the right things. That's a fun time to join a company.
Yeah.
It's also hard to be the new guy. And there's a lot of new people that are coming in that all have these sort of perspectives of how they think things should work. And then your eyes get wide open when you realize how complex what we're working on is. Right. And there's no easy solution to any of the problems that we're doing. We're working on really, really hard problems that are intensely hard to solve. And that's actually, I think, attracts certain types of people to where we are right now. It's because they're so hard to solve that I think people gravitate towards that.
Yeah. So we're standing in front of the Gen 4 machine. I'm curious from your perspective, what are you most excited about what comes next in the tech? Is it these robots behind us and what you're going to be able to add in terms of sensing and imaging? Or is it what takes place with the data sets and what you guys are able to do?
So that's a great question. I think that the most exciting thing is what people do with the data that we deliver.
Okay.
So if you look at anywhere across the product and technology, there's just places to be insanely curious about. You'll learn about rocks, you'll learn about sensors, you'll learn about automation, you'll learn about hardware and infrastructure and how to deal with data and data management. All of those are really, really interesting technical problems. But ultimately what we deliver is good quality data that people make decisions on. And you have to focus on that. You have to focus
Right.
on earning trust. You have to focus on people being able to do that in a timely manner and the consistency in how you deliver that. So I think one of the scaling challenges is that you've got 13 years of decisions that were made that were totally appropriate at the time they were made. And now you have to go and interrogate a lot of those and say, are the assumptions that those decisions were made with still valid? And do we need to put a different lens of where the business is now and in the direction of where the business is going and start to put pressure on those decisions? So that has my day to day traversing almost every team in the company, working with people that are different experts. You work with one day a sensor expert, the next day you'll work with a networking expert, then you'll
Right.
talk to the geoscientists, and you'll work with the R&D folks and data scientists and try to put all of that together. What we need to do to scale is start to think about it less like you're experimenting and more like you're delivering something that's reliable and robust and is going to scale to hundreds of trailers or thousands of trailers in
Right.
the world. And that changes where you're going to start to put some of your investment. You're no longer trying to prove out something. You're trying to say, well, how's it going to break? How do I do this more reliably? How do I do it more reliably and faster? And what's the limit of what we can do with that? And then you have to start thinking about what you can do with the broad spectrum of data that we have too,
Yeah.
because you can dog food that and start to come up with new innovations and new products that build on things that you couldn't have done before because you didn't have all of that capability.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's such an interesting part of it. A question I asked Grant on our tour, but it was around synthetic data. I mean, I'm curious, do you think there is an application of like synthetic data where you could fundamentally be using these real data sets, create synthetic data and start to map the world and understand everything that's under these rocks?
What's really hard to deal with in anything subsurface is the uncertainty. And so you're always dealing with what you think is below the ground.
Right.
And you're trying to categorize that. And you're trying to come up with scenarios and probabilities and realizations about that. I think at the point that we're starting to see the mining industry embrace is that it's really kind of the first time that companies have been able to deal with good quality data.
Yeah.
For so many years, there's been lots of data, but it's been inconsistent and it hasn't delivered on what you're able to really use it for in terms of that long-term mine planning cycle. And you're starting to see a bit of a shift now, how mining companies are making decisions and planning differently around that. So one of the opportunities is, well, what happens if you layer on new data into that? What happens when you start to enrich that and you add different layers of metadata, or you start adding things that are more contextual to that? And that starts to equip mining engineers and geologists and geoscientists with being able to ask better questions about that. That's the point that we're at right now. So I think there's a huge opportunity to be able to do that, but it all starts with good quality data that's logged.
Yeah.
You can't fake it. You can't make up data and say, look, I'm going to go make this long-lived multi-billion-dollar decision on what I think is subsurface because I used ChatGPT to do that. There's hard science behind that, and
Right.
there's people in the industry that focus intensely on making sure that that science is accurate.
Yeah. That's great. Well, so Grant, I want to turn back to you. We're talking a little bit about data and uh, right now, I think in the world, AI has caused a surge in the building of data centers, and data centers need something like 15,000 tons of copper
Yeah.
per data center, even more, I think, for like a hyperscaler, um, and um, the sort of these mines also there's a huge supply crunch, right?
Yeah.
But you guys just bought a copper mine in Arizona. Tell me about that project and what you guys are trying to do there.
Yeah, it's hard for our customers to say, here's the full value of what you're doing
Right.
to us. It's not in their competitive interest to do so. And so what we said was, we need a site that we can invest in with a good management team where we can apply all of the technology at once.
Okay.
So let's before we drill the site, so it's at pre-feas, are getting to pre-feasibility stage. It was an operating mine. It's going to come back into operation. We need to get it into that feasibility stage, which means drilling, expanding the deposit. So can we use our technology to start with, completely optimize the drill program, get real-time information in, log remotely, get experts looking at it from all over the world, from all different places, and then what is the value at every level here? So, and can we create a product that is this for juniors and exploration companies? So this is your GeologicAI product. You get far better capital efficacy. You get better earlier decisions. You're more effective with every dollar you spend. And so we think we're tracking between 10 and 50 times capital and efficiency improvement at this site. And it's a major thing. And so we're excited to kind of have this example to show the world over the next year and a half.
So your goal with this mine is maybe, of course, to effectively mine copper, but it's more to show to your future customers, this is how good our tool and our service is.
Yeah, and some of our original work, it returned a $6 million savings after 2 weeks of technology. Looking at the drill optimization. What exactly does the science say the spacing should be on this program? That's a big number for a small company who's exploring. And so that was step one. We were like, wow, we didn't think we'd be that kind of lucky. It could have gone the other way. But in this scenario, it was like, that is an enormous value creation to this small junior company. And so that has gone, it's been step after step of, boy, this is a whole unique way to explore. And it's having real-time information is just so critical.
But it's not just the value savings and the dollar amount savings. It's also the efficiency, right? And what that means for the world if we're able to mine more efficiently.
We need to get copper to market and other critical metals too, but specifically the big one that's kind of industrial scale, in every building, in every data center is copper. And the energy transition, what countries are looking at here, the Japanese power grid went up for the first time in 2 decades. And they're looking at adding 40% to power AI. So the level of infrastructure that's needed here, and therefore the level of metals, is enormous. And some estimates say, $400 billion needs to go into copper. The most the industry's ever put in has been 70. So there's a huge step change in capital needed, efficiencies needed to just get these critical metals flowing to service the needs of humanity, right? We need an energy transition. We need, well, I don't know if we need, but AI is so far so good. And so we definitely need to have the resources to make this happen. And the world has abundant resources. The problem with resource business is decision making. And we can fix it or help at the geological decision level. You described to me as standing on a pile of rocks and under your feet, with good science and good data, can find a $2 billion asset. Walk me through that and what that looks like for someone like me who has no idea. Right. So you go to one of these sites, our site's in Arizona, and you walk around and you see kind of the operation that was happening. There was a mine that was built there and was operating. So you can see where they were digging, kind of how they were advancing it, what exactly they were doing to produce it. And that asset really isn't worth much without some really good science. So the difference from it being 1 billion pounds of copper that's good for the world and not is just some really good science, some drilling, some good drilling interpretation, some great engineering, but really I call it the binder. The difference between the world getting 1 billion pounds of copper from that site and not is the science. And that all comes from getting the right information, doing it efficiently, timely, effectively, making good decisions early, the best decision you can given the uncertainty. And so it's just kind of neat how much value is generated by doing a great job as opposed to a good job.
Well, what's that light bulb moment when you're talking to some of these mining companies and you're showing them what you're able to do for them? What is it that often is like, holy shit, you guys can do that for me?
I don't know. It's a combination of things. And typically when industrial adoption is at pain points, and it's very hard for these big industries that have committed so much capital and decisions to change.
Yeah.
And so we target the people who are able to make change. And when they have an issue, and typically it's something really interesting, it's really fun to see, hey, this data is actually helping.
Right.
And to see some of the discovery that's happened. So, there's been complete changing in 100-year-old geological interpretations.
Yeah.
And that's leading to billion-dollar discoveries.
Wow.
And that's really, it's kind of amazing. Again, we're on the edges of it as a service company, and that's great. But it's fun for me how we can optimize decision-making in assets. Think about countries. So we think and work with a lot of country level. How do we develop this asset base?
Yeah.
And okay, first, get data. 2, use agents, and then rank your assets, like from a technical, from an environmental, from those perspectives, and then fund the ones that could change the entire world.
Right.
In Canada, we have about 15 what we'd call game-changing discoveries that cities are built around, right? Like Sudbury, like those type of places.
Right.
There are hundreds more available to this country, right? Hundreds. And they're not as obvious from the surface. And so we need a concentrated effort to say to ourselves, is this potentially a world-changing deposit?
Right.
And we're doing this kind of at a very high level with a number of governments now, and it's very exciting.
That's awesome. So this might be an incredibly dumb question, but I am curious about critical minerals in the Canadian Arctic and how much is simply undiscovered because we haven't looked under it and because of permafrost. Could something like GeologicAI go into Canada's Arctic and identify assets or new basins that are worth us investing the infrastructure into mining and drilling in the Arctic?
Yeah, and my take on that is there are some deposits that are so game-changing, Canada will bend over backwards to get them developed.
Right.
And so that's the question we need to go answer. Like, there are many deposits that have been kind of slowly tested for 60, 80, 100 years, but still haven't answered that core question. Is this a globally significant, important deposit?
Right.
And if you can answer that question, or at least know how to target that question, you can change entirely how we develop our assets in Canada. Because we have such an abundance. It's just such an important thing for us to do. And for everyone to do, frankly, to fill the needs of the world.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. So you mentioned at some point you guys go after the junior players in the mining space.
We don't.
Oh,
No,
you don't? Oh,
no,
okay.
No, we work with the seniors, typically big, huge companies that can kind of get the most out of our data because they have big science teams.
Okay.
Right. And the idea is to solve the hardest problems in mining.
Yeah.
Like, that's our strategy is,
Okay.
that's how you get adoption. And so this site we have in Arizona is kind of our first work with a junior.
Okay.
And we're going to package up a product for juniors, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. I was going to say, because I assume with Rio Tinto, they must be using you at least a few of their sites, right?
Yeah, we've got 6 of the top 10 super majors with kind of, call it global scale out contracts.
Wow.
Or master services agreement. And they all adopt at different paces. And they all have different places where our technology is important. And so it's always fun to see, iron ore suddenly takes on our thing, is doing the biggest compute we've ever seen. Well, that's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's really fun to watch.
Yeah, that's awesome. John, I'm curious, maybe shifting it back and Geo kind of locating us here in Calgary. There's a thread about Calgary having so many so much oil patch expertise being what's leading the next sort of green industrial technology. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, how important is it that we have kind of this oil patch expertise and looking at geothermal and the folks at Aver, coming out of Calgary, and you guys with what you guys are doing, having developed this for the oil sands? How important is that Calgary kind of has this oil patch expertise?
Well, there's a really important lineage of talent and problem solving that Calgary's been part of for decades and decades. And I think as you see pressures that are on the energy industry as a whole, the nature of the types of problems that people are solving changes. Less from sort of E&P and traditional oil and gas and drilling wells now to taking technologies and services and coupling them up into different types of challenges where you've got adjacencies. So we have a great talent pool for that, and there's a ton of experience in that. And I think what you're starting to see now are startup companies or larger companies placing bigger bets in some of those, partly because it's about diversifying, and partly because you've got this captive talent pool and you've got this captive set of skills and people want to go apply them to something.
Yeah. Okay. Grant, how important is it that you guys are in Calgary?
Oh, we're just so grateful to be here.
Yeah.
Right. Canada is an amazing ecosystem for getting things started. We have this bridge where sometimes we get things started, but they don't stay.
Right.
And so it's an important bridge to address for Canada. But there's something here in Calgary that's a mentality of kind of go for it. That is, it has a parallel to Silicon Valley, right?
Right.
I'm going to set a big goal. I'm going to look at the technologies of today and see how they can be applied to other industries.
Yeah.
Because you can't underestimate the power of just doing something. Right. As opposed to thinking about, like, ideas are a dime a dozen. You learn a lot when you do something. And that is definitely something that is in Alberta. It's something that's in all of Canada, but it's really, there's a neat concentration of it here. A little bit of risk taking.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have, we talked a bit about your backers already, like Bill Gates' Breakthrough Fund, CDL,
Blue Earth, Export Development Canada as well.
That's right. I want to talk a bit about your angels, because you have some big Calgary angels.
Oh, yeah.
Who you mentioned on our prep call, Jim Gray, and you called him Calgary's Batman.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah, what's going on with Jim Gray?
Jim Gray is now 93, and he cares so deeply about some key initiatives in this community.
Yeah.
Like Bow Valley wildfires, like education, the Renfrew schools, the 7 over 70,
Right.
founding this stuff and stepping forward. And I was just had the good fortune to having met with Jim, worked with Jim. He comes and visits about once a quarter, gives us idea. He's the reason I went to the Bill Gates group.
Okay.
He was amazing. Other mentors, Chen Fong has just been absolutely fantastic here in Calgary. And is directly involved and has helped us out immensely. Gave us some, call it, larger scale vision. Michael Kelly, Douglas Beach, a whole pile. I couldn't name them all, so I don't want to exclude anyone, but I just think about the value of that mentorship.
Okay.
And then for mentees, the value I've seen of like being part of CDL as a mentor now, how important it is to intake some of these opportunities. Right. So that's one of my things for junior companies, their ability to take ideas and you're welcome to disregard them, but don't do a Canadian no, which is just not acknowledge. Right. Choose not to, but don't take advice. And so I think there's a mentorship thing here that's ultra valuable. And we had early success from, that CDL group who's just been so impactful, about 12 people, can't name them all. My apologies. And then Breakthrough's been amazing. Blue Earth has been amazing. BHP, Rio Tinto. These are world-class organizations that are, have good ideas that we try to ingest and do a good job with.
Yeah. I want to pull on that thread a little bit. The Canadian no, what I've heard that kind of described as is maybe less in the context that you're saying, but more in the context of corporates and the slow no, which is in Canada so often are they like, well, maybe, and 6 months will drag you on until they eventually tell you no. Do you find that that's the case when you're dealing with like Canadian mining companies being different than kind of global?
I'm not sure they're different than global. A lot of mining companies are Canadian or Australian, and they have that, does mining have that prevalent, I'll call it an American response?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Some companies do. We love those companies who have an honest, hey, we looked at this. Nope. You have to do this, this, and this to get it to move forward.
Right.
Here's what we think. That's a much more valuable attitude towards innovation than anything else. And, we struggle with that with people all the time. It's easy to just walk away. It's hard to give honest assessments.
Yeah.
Right. But hyper valuable. And so I think about that a lot, and how our management team executes, how we deal with third parties. Is it passively failing, or is it actively, addressing issues?
Yeah. John, you guys are hiring here.
Yes.
How many open roles do you guys have here?
I actually don't know.
Okay, quite a bit.
I think we have quite a few.
We hired 60 in the first half of this year.
Okay.
We're kind of on that trajectory right now. It's flowing.
It's fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think the thing is that we're constantly hiring. So
Yeah.
we're just always looking out for people, and there's new roles that keep getting posted, and it's grow. The side that I see of that is, when you're out there recruiting, but also when you're onboarding people, and then you're trying to deal with, okay, now you've got all this pressure on more people doing more things, and
Right.
asking for more systems and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say? You've been here for a year and a half. What would you say to people who are interested in working here?
We are solving some insanely hard challenges, and the thing that defines us as a company and will continue to define us is the caliber of people that we've got. I think there's a natural curiosity that people have, and there's a really, really good sense of collaboration and being able to pull this off,
Yeah.
to do it. And that's a rare thing. That's something that I think sometimes when you're in the midst of it, you don't really realize what you're a part of. And then you start to see some of the solutions to some of these problems making their way out to the market where people use them, and it provides a lot of value. So that's a really, really important thing for anyone that's looking at what type of company you'd be interested in joining. And just the depth and scale of the types of problems that we've got, they're so wide. So we're not making light bulbs. We're building really, really complex things, and we're applying really complex science and trying to make all of this really easy. So
Yeah.
people use it. And there's a lot that goes into making something look easy.
Yeah. That's awesome. Grant, I wanna zoom out a little bit. I want to talk a bit about the market and the minerals market. Gold, copper, silver all had 45-year record highs this year. I'm curious if you think this is just a moment, or whether or not this is like a sustained peak and we'll just continue to see new highs in these metals.
Well, I mean, will governments control inflation?
Right.
Is a question that's probably pretty easy to answer for most people. I don't think it's well controlled
Right.
now. So obviously precious metals have their value. But it's the energy transition, and it's the CO2, it's the AI buildup, and it's that motion forward and growth demands metals like we haven't seen.
Right.
And so I compare it to the oil patch in 2000. Oil in 99 was $10 a barrel, 9.
Yeah.
It went to 12 in 2000, and then 25 in 2001. That's kind of where copper is.
Right.
And everyone's going, oh, it'll go back down. Will it, or is there a fundamental supply shift change?
Right.
The next decade, oil went to 150. That might be a situation we'll find ourselves in if we can't bring on supply.
Yeah.
And it's horrible for the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Horrible for the world if we're not able to address
if we're not
supply.
able to address the supply crunch.
Okay. And what about, I'm curious, like, China now processes about 90% of all critical metals. But I did see that, is it Fortune Minerals is turning on soon, or starting the development
Awesome.
of a cobalt processing plant. Are we sort of stuck in this world where China will continue to process nearly all of the world's metals, or how do we kind of reallocate some of that processing to the West?
Well, yeah, the problem for the West is China owns that processing technology.
Right.
They're technically advanced in all of that. And here we are kind of outside of that with little or no production.
Yeah.
And so addressing that is just a critical issue. I am definitely not the expertise on the processing side,
Okay.
but I definitely acknowledge, how China has cornered that market and how successful they've been in doing that. And hopefully we can be cooperative to deploy their technology into some of these sites as well.
Okay.
That's optimism, but hey,
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What does it all, maybe to round it out, what does it all look like for you in 5 years' time, or even a decade's time for geologic AI, if the markets in these critical minerals are just continue to push prices higher, and you guys are going to continue your growth rate like this, where are you guys in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I'm really hoping this technology and our contribution can be a globally significant thing,
Yeah,
right? And that is the goal.
yeah,
Like, can we automate better decisions in mining? Can we actually do the holy grail of things like grade control, or like some of these lofty goals on geotechnical or geomechanical, geotechnical, metallurgical stuff? If we can elevate some of this because of better understanding of the rock, we'll really have succeeded.
right.
And we're doing that in a small scale now. But again, we're addressing in rock scanning, we're by far the largest player. We're 1.5% of the market.
Yeah,
So there's this opportunity to actually impact the entire market.
wow. Yeah,
And so that impacts the world's resource production. And it's really fun. Like, coming from a little shop with a couple robotics and some ideas about resource, can we actually do that? And we've got the opportunity. So I hope so.
that's super exciting.
And I'm super grateful to the team and all the mentors and all the people in helping us get there. Like,
Yeah,
this has really become a group effort.
yeah. John, where do you see this in 5 years?
I think that we're going to continue on the path that we're on and build out some really remarkable technology that people trust and they use, and it becomes core to the way that they do their job.
Yeah,
And I think for me, success means that when you think about geologic AI and the data that we provide and the tools that we provide, people want to use it and they say, I need to use that. That's amazing. Look at how much better it makes me at doing what I'm doing in the industry. And I think there's a subtle way that starts to change over time, where you earn trust, and you have to be really consistent in how you show up as a product and service company. But we're also taking several steps into places where no company has taken steps into before. So the frontier of that comes along with a lot of fog and uncertainty. And if we can continue to build it and we keep pushing the limits of what we can do, but we stay true to the science in how we do it, I think it'll be a really fun place, and it'll be a place where people just want to work and they want to solve problems. They want to apply their skills.
yeah,
That'll be really satisfying to get to that point.
yeah. Cool. That's awesome. Well, Grant, John, thank you guys so much for having me in your space. This has been super cool.
Oh, thank you. It
Yeah.
was a pleasure.
This is great. Cool. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.